You are looking at two Gibson Les Pauls, both made in the US, both based on the 60s model, both sound great, both look beautiful. Yet, one is 1,000 dirhams cheaper, has more tonal options, and is even lighter. However, that same guitar is considered to be the lesser Les Paul. Can you guess which one it is?
There are no lesser Les Pauls, only morer.
Morer.
Yeah, they're all vintage. Some are just more vintage and more expensive.
Well, that's one way to look at it, but let's get the facts straight. So in this episode, we're gonna take a look at the Gibson Les Paul Classic and find out why some people would love this instrument and some people just won't. But before we do, please hit the subscribe button below. It helps me keep making more videos like this and hopefully buy somebody a dictionary. Through the years, Gibson has released so many versions of its most loved creation. Today, we still get different models to choose from, starting with the entry-level Les Paul Tribute, all the way to the custom shop models and even the more exclusive Murphy Lab releases. Somewhere in the middle is the flagship model, the Standard. This has all the popular appointments and hardware configuration that players have come to love through the decades. And just below it, in the Les Paul range, sits the Classic. Now this is where it gets tricky. It has to do with the word classic. Usually, when that word is used in a brand's variant, it's talking about the bare bones original, the one that you love, the one that you have gotten used to before all of those other options came into play. But that's not the case with Gibson. In fact, the Les Paul Standard is probably better suited for that product description. The problem is that the word standard was used by Gibson when it re-released the Les Paul back in 1958, featuring the sound and look we now consider to be defining Les Paul characteristics. And that name just stuck.
Where does classic come in?
Well, that story started in 1990. In that year, the Les Paul Standard was a guitar that had evolved through the years, meaning it had what we would probably consider as modern upgrades. It was at this time that Gibson decided to recreate their very original Les Paul models from the 60s, and they named it the Les Paul Classic.
Wait, so back then, the Standard was modern and the Classic was the original, but now the Standard is the original and the Classic is modern?
Well, yes and no, because there actually is a Les Paul model called the Les Paul Modern, but that's a topic for a different day. Anyway, fast forward to 2019/2020. A change in upper management at Gibson led to some key changes in the product line. The Standard would now be the model that harkens back to the original 50s and 60s models. And the Classic would be the one that takes certain traits of the 60s Les Paul, such as the slim tapered neck and the same burst bucker pickups, and have some modern touches, such as the push-pull coil tapping knobs.
What's that?
Oh, that's a function that lets you pull the tone and volume knobs of the guitar, and that will give you a new set of tone options that the Standard doesn't have. Let me show you. Out of phase, knob up. Pull up the knob, single coil. regardless of your setting on your bridge pickup, when you pull this up, it just bypasses all of those bridge pickup settings to go direct to just this pickup with no tone interferences or other configuration, and it just goes direct to the amp.
What if you don't use the knobs? Does it still sound like a Les Paul?
Well, let's compare them. Aside from the tone, the Les Paul Classic also comes with a 9-point weight relief, which makes it lighter and fantastic to play on stage. The current Classic models are available in burst or solid colors, but what distinguishes them from the Standard are these exposed humbuckers, which is like an added element of rock and roll. So altogether, the Les Paul Classic is quite a package. And now the best part, it's 1,000 dirhams cheaper than the Standard. So if you're looking for a really practical guitar...
Shut up and take my money!
Now obviously, there are guitar players out there who would tell you that the Les Paul Standard is the way to go. I would agree with them, especially when it comes to the playability and the warm tone of the 50s Standard model. For all of its tonal possibilities, that push-pull coil tapping function is just not for me. I mean, it doesn't feel natural. I would play a Les Paul because I want that Les Paul sound. If I wanted a Strat sound, I would simply play a Strat. But for what it offers and its price, the Les Paul Classic is a fantastic guitar. In fact, it's what I've used in the studio for many of my projects last year, including when recording music for some commercials that you might have seen. But what do you guys think? I'd really like to know, especially those of you who play it regularly or have owned it in the past. Please leave a comment below. Until next time, this is Michael Fillon, aka LOUDMIKEDXB, hoping you keep discovering new sounds, new gear, and awesome new music. And now I leave you with the words of Prince. You don't have to be rich to be my girl. You don't have to be cool to rule my world. Ain't no particular sign I'm more compatible with. I just want your extra time and your kiss. I think I want to dance now. Later.